Button that says we are alive again.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Another day above ground, I'm glad to say. It's a bonus when you get to my age.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So
today's...
Go on.
Yeah.
It's your show.
Is it really? Sometimes I wonder.
It says here on the
paper.
It
says here. Yeah. Now, we've been blessed with a lot of very interesting people in the past week, haven't we? We've had a lot of interesting visitors.
Yep.
And today, though, boy, have we got something interesting for you.
This
Ruth,
gentleman,
tell the folks all about it.
This gentleman has quite the resume. So Barry Wayne Simon was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and he attended the University of Oregon and graduated from Portland State, majoring in business and psychology, which is a very interesting combo. And he's lived in San Francisco and Marin County in California, Florence, Italy, which is fascinating, and is now in Santa Monica. So the events of the 60s and 70s, the assassinations and war and poverty and all of that stuff, led to Barry's commitment to make a difference to improve the quality of life for all people. So to that end, he began a career in financial services to assist others in living a fulfilled life and achieving their financial goals. So in addition to that, as if he wasn't busy enough, Barry created Conversations for Peace, which is what we'll talk about today. It's a project giving people around the world an opportunity to express themselves, be heard, understood, and appreciated. And guests are invited to share what would be possible in their community, in the nation, and the world if can we all just get along? Yep. Absolutely. What would that be like? So check out conversationsforpeace.com. And this weekend, they're going to be having their free streaming concert, we're happy to say, featuring a Geist video by Martin. So to further his commitment to a world that works for everyone, Barry's also been an active member of Rotary International, as well as being 16-year member and past president of the United Nations Association of the USA, Southern California region. He currently serves as a regional representative to the United Nations USA National Council. And I can't wait to have you all meet our dear friend, Barry Wayne Simon. And there he is.
Hello, Barry. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard.
Absolutely. Great. And I know how busy you are, so thanks for carving out the time this morning.
Yeah. So absolutely. First of all, please tell us all how it all got started.
How does a guy?
Yeah, I've written some notes here and I've got the wrong glasses on, so bear with me.
So how does a guy go from Portland to Florence?
Yes. How did you go from Portland to Florence, Italy? Come on now.
Well, love could be a funny thing.
It was love, was it?
I took a vacation. I took a break from the investment services business and took a trip to Italy. Ended up meeting a lovely young lady, and she came and visited me several months later. And then I moved there and lived with her in Florence for about almost a year. Never was something I'd thought of before. It wasn't a bucket list item, but it was one of the best decisions I ever made. We had a great time. We're still friends. It was a very rocky relationship, lots of ups and downs, and good and bad. And but we do love each other always, and we're great friends. We have the same birthday. That was part of what knocked me off my feet when I met her. And we were both Quindici Luglio, so that's the 15th of July.
Excellent. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
it's not often you meet. I mean, it's a 1 in 365 and a quarter chance, right? Of meeting
well, at
someone.
Least you'll never forget each other's birthdays, will you?
But
that's right.
That's nice to hear that you're both still friends. I'm Martin is my third and hopefully final husband.
Hopefully.
But my as I call Paul and Dita, my starter husbands are still great friends. And we've had all three. I've got this great photograph of me with Martin and Paul and Dita. And I went into the garage and I got some masking tape and a Sharpie and I wrote like the Grinch, number 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
We've got this absolutely great photo. But before we talk about Conversations for Peace, your day job, as I mentioned, is actually in the financial services sector. So how do you, when you first get a new client, it's kind of like therapy, isn't it? How do you know what their true goal is, or if their spouse is projecting their goal onto them? How do you sort that all out?
Well, it's interesting, and it kind of brings my business background together with my psychology background in talking to people, getting a sense of what they say are their objectives,
Yeah.
and then what their life appears like. So, if they're driving a 15-year-old car and have a great amount of savings, then I know that they're on the kind of prudent, responsible, perhaps maybe frugal side, and might lean towards more conservative investments. And if, depending on what they share about their life, there might be leaning and showing me some examples of where they might be leaning to be more aggressive. And so I can take that into consideration from the kind of the whole picture.
Oh, I see. Very interesting.
Well,
yeah.
I would think, yes. I mean, psychology, we had two incredible British psychologists here last night. And, it literally does touch every single aspect of your life, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, in my work as an investment advisor, I started with a firm that was called Dean Witter, became Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
And then I went independent about 15, 18 years ago, clearing through a smaller regional firm. And it's just interesting how a lot of the men in couples might contact me with the final decisions, but ultimately they were made by their spouse. And women tend to make, I would say, better investment decisions. They're less emotionally driven when it comes to investments. Just like a man might walk into a car showroom and be attracted to that red car, a woman tends to be a bit more prudent in those decisions.
Thinking about the mortgage insurance instead of the Ferrari, right?
Exactly.
Do you find that because the Conversations for Peace is obviously global, do you find that culturally, because I know a friend of ours in Australia is married to a native Japanese wife, and she runs the finances. They go out to dinner. She puts the credit card down. He turns over his paycheck, because in Japan, the women sort of are the banker of the household, if you will. Do you find that when you're advising clients from different cultural backgrounds that the roles shift?
I think, like what I said and what you just shared, is similar, and seems to be that a commonality among cultures, that even though the man might appear to be making the decisions, it's backed by and let's say seconded by the spouse. And I remember my grandfather, who would be over 100 years old today if he was still alive, but I remember him giving the money to my grandmother. She would walk into this business and pay the bills, and that business and pay the bills, or walk into the bank. That was a couple that would be both over 100 today if they were still alive.
Yeah.
That's why one of our old friends, she's no longer with us, Evan Francis. She was living in Chicago in the probably 40s, I would say. And she got divorced, and she wanted to buy a house, and she was a single woman, and she couldn't get a mortgage. So she literally fought and got a law passed. She was the first female in the state of Illinois
to get a mortgage.
So wow.
We've come a long way,
That's right. Even though the women were making the decisions, they couldn't get a credit card until the 1970s.
That's right. Our friend Elizabeth in Pittsburgh, she's saying, always give the money to the woman. Yes, Elizabeth.
Yes, Elizabeth. I'll drink to that.
We absolutely agree. Can you see that, or do you want me to?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, how did you first become involved with the United Nations?
That's a great question. I had been involved with some courses and seminars offered through an organization called Landmark, and some people knew me from some courses at Landmark and invited me to assist the Pasadena, California chapter in the planning of their 60th anniversary of the UN event in 2005. I'd always been interested in international politics and international relations. But I'd never heard of the UN Association, which is not part of the UN. It's a separate organization. It's actually has become part of the UN Foundation, neither of which are part of the UN. The UN Association was created with the assistance of Eleanor Roosevelt when the League of Nations disbanded, and there were like community chapters, grassroots chapters educating people in their communities about the work of the League of Nations. When the League of Nations disbanded, she worked with those clubs to transform them into the UN Association. There's a couple hundred, about 240 chapters of the UN Association throughout the country, both community chapters and college campus chapters. And about 10 years ago, it was acquired by or merged into the UN Foundation, which is also not part of the UN, but was created by Ted Turner when he sold CNN to Time Warner and pledged $1 billion for the creation of the UN Foundation.
Good boy.
Both organizations work to advance the work of the UN, to support full funding of U.S. dues to the UN, the importance of a strong UN-U.S. relationship, etc.
Right. Very interesting. Ted Turner has had quite the life. I mean, he's between starting CNN and saving bison. He also funded a company in Houston, Texas, that we did the branding and the website for, called Merit Solar. And his whole gig there was conservation and ecologically, was to get the oil and gas, especially in Texas, the big oil and gas processing companies and the refineries, to power their refineries with solar fields, which he's managed to do. I think they've got like 18 to 22% now of the electrical grid use for oil and gas companies in Texas has gone down because they're using this company, Merit Solar, which was, again, funded by Ted Turner. The man had quite a brain on him. God bless.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
I have not.
No, me either. God, I mean, what a fascinating character. Real maverick, right?
Absolutely. I think he's still riding his horse around his ranch and having a pretty good life, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Jane Fonda still always speaks very fondly of him.
Yeah. God, what a power couple they were.
Yes, they were. Individually and together.
Talk about starter husbands. She's had a few, hasn't she?
Oh, I'm just the amateur. I've only had 2.
So now to the matter at hand.
Yes.
Conversations for Peace, which is where everybody must tune in on this coming Saturday, the 21st of September at 10 a.m. Pacific, which is 1 o'clock lunchtime on the East Coast. It's a free concert. You can register. And tell us the genesis of Conversations for Peace. I'm guessing that probably came out of your United Nations Association relationships and the idea.
Actually, it evolved from something I created in the 90s. My middle name is Wayne, and I had tried to do stand-up comedy a couple of times and didn't want to be funny all the time because there was times when things just sort of, for lack of a better word, pissed me off. So I went from trying to do a little bit of stand-up to creating something called Barry Wayne's Venting Event. I did a monthly venting event, which we taped and edited into a local TV show, where people came together and expressed their views on issues of the day and left feeling better, even though nothing was necessarily resolved. That evolved over the years into Conversations for Peace, a little bit less abrasive than what might have been what people call venting. And it started with the fact that I've been my entire life, the headlines have always been about strife in the Middle East. So when I created Conversations for Peace, my first thing to do was to go to Israel and interview people from across the spectrum on what would be possible if everyone could get along. I interviewed a Palestinian lawyer in the South, a rabbi in the West Bank, a mayor of Haifa, a number of other people, and nobody could speculate on what would be possible because they've never known peace.
Yeah.
But that led to a number of episodes on my website on what would be possible. I've interviewed beyond the Middle East, 2 African-American women here in Los Angeles who had a son murdered, one by an unknown murderer, one by a police officer, and how they dealt with that, how they bring peace to that horrible experience.
Yeah.
And other people I've interviewed since then. And then that evolved into realizing that, the international language, how music is like an international language and can bring people together.
Absolutely.
So it made perfect sense to bridge conversations and music and create Conversations for Peace.
That's fantastic. So it always amazes me when you see these, like Uvalde, or there's just too many to mention, these horrible mass shootings on TV. And, sometimes they get the perpetrator, and parents can stand up in court and say, the victim impact statement, but then they can look at the perpetrator and say, I forgive you. It just astonishes me, the human capacity
for
forgiveness and understanding. And I think, the kernel of wanting peace has to be in everyone, even if you disagree about borders or politics or whatever. We all just want our family and our friends to be well and safe with a roof over their heads and something in the fridge, and a fridge that plugs into electricity that works.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Is this what you find generally, the commonality across the spectrum when you talk to people?
Absolutely. No question about it, that we're similar, whether, we all have blood in our veins, we all care about our families, we all want the best for our kids, whether you're in a village in deep East Africa or in Spokane, Washington. It doesn't matter where you are. Human beings want the best for themselves. And I think that at some level, they want to make a difference for themselves, for their families, for their communities, or for the world. At some level, they want to know in their life that they've made at least a little bit of a difference somewhere. And so no question. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. And, that's one of the wonderful things we get to do every week with our viewers and our peeps, on TeaFlix, is just spread some knowledge, some love, some joy. We've become friends with people we've never physically met, but it's because we're all coming from the same place, and we just want the place that we're in to get better for everyone. All boats rise on the same tide, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I can't understand in the media all the rhetoric about, transactional versus aspirational versus whatever. Just let people go vote. Don't ask them who they voted for. Just make sure you vote.
Just vote. Just vote.
And I respect anybody. We have neighbors down here who don't think the same way that we do. But, we house sit for them. We take in and out their trash. I left them lasagna in their fridge from when they came home on a red eye. Because, honestly, their lawn sign might be different from mine. But at the end of the day, when the 6.8 earthquake hits, I know that they'll be there for us. Yeah. And we will be there for them.
That's right. Yes.
That's right. I agree, Elizabeth. We need worldwide peace. But
this idea of having to demean anybody not like me or anybody not like you, this idea of demeaning the other, it just is just very and a very ugly part of society currently. Maybe it's always been that way. In fact, at some level, I think it has. We demeaned we brought in slaves. We brought in the Chinese to work the railroads and to lay the tracks. We demeaned the Irish. We demeaned, pretty much most people that came into this country at some point. And yet this country really is a melting pot, unlike any other.
Right. Yeah. Our friend Efrat's tuning in from Israel, and she's saying, I wish I could say that about our neighbors. And that is where Barry started. Efrat was in Israel and Palestine. This has been, the burning question and just dreadful for absolutely everybody on both sides. I mean, did you find when you were having these conversations, did you find an equal amount of determination or resignation to the fact, or is there just too much money involved in war?
Well, certainly the amount of personal, unofficial, not UN opinion, not UN association opinion, but personal opinion is that, yes, everybody has their heels dug in, and they point to the other. It's the other. And if they hadn't done, then we wouldn't. Or if and they say the same thing. There's this rabbi that I mentioned in the West Bank that says he had an epiphany that about 20 years ago, he says he had an epiphany where he suddenly realized he'd been in the West Bank for 30 years. And he suddenly realized that all these other people around were actually people, referring to the Palestinians. And again, having meetings with them. Now they're best friends. They have meetings together. They have a school together for kids of Jewish and non-Jewish and Palestinian and other backgrounds in the school. I asked if he gets any support from the Israeli government. He laughed. He said no. So the governments, I think, get a lot out of keeping it this way on both sides. And the people can get along. Can get along. It's just,
Right.
It's a big, as Money said, war is a big money game, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, the media now just, everything is in your face immediately.
Well, and it's down to clicks and tuning in and who's going to
Yeah.
watch who at 6 and 7 and 8 o'clock in the
Yeah.
prime time, and how many commercials they can sell for how many millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they think we're all stupid, but we're up to their game. And only humanity can fix it. And music is obviously a big part of that. So back to the conversationsforpeace.com, the concert for peace this coming Saturday. How did that come about? When did you decide to make it an annual event? Who's participating? Just give kids an overview of what they're going to see this weekend.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, anyone anywhere in the world can go to knekt.live. That's knekt.live to see the concert live, 10 a.m. West Coast time. As Ruth mentioned, 1 p.m. New York, 7 p.m. plus or minus, depending on where you are in Europe, for example.
Yeah.
And it's free of charge. We have talent from the U.S. and abroad. We have a beautiful rendition, actually, of a friend of mine, Marcus Bell's performance of Imagine, actually. And it's a very nice rendition. We have the lead singer from Lion King performing Circle of Life. We have Geist performing one or maybe two songs. We have other songs from around the world, and also benefiting 3 nonprofits. So the concert itself is free. However, we are inviting participants to contribute to 3 organizations. One of those is Roots and Shoots, which is the Jane Goodall organization.
Yep.
The other is Promise to Live, which is a great organization that encourages people to sign up to Promise to Live. So if ever you find yourself in a suicidal state, that you promise to live, that you promise to reach out to someone.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that's a great organization. And the third one is a European organization called Greeburn, Greebirn, and their program is to train and educate youth on leadership, on global issues, etc. So it's really a lot of youth focus in these 3 nonprofits. It came about a year ago, was the first one that I decided to do on International Day of Peace, September 21st this year. And the last year was, I think, the same date, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one. And it went really, really well. And so it went so well that we decided to do another one very quickly, which was put together and launched on Thanksgiving Eve of last year, which recognized the musical contribution of indigenous communities.
Fantastic.
Indigenous communities in the world have been very left out conversations. And what we did to the Indian community in this country and what's happened to indigenous communities elsewhere is a crime. And those communities should be recognized, and certainly their musical contribution is significant.
Yeah, well, I actually media manage a Choctaw chef in Houston. He's originally from Ponca City, Oklahoma, and he's Choctaw and tiny bit Chickasaw. And he now has the only Choctaw restaurant in the state of Texas. It's called Ishtia, Ishtia, down on the Gulf Shores just south of Houston. So I spend a lot of time and research in the indigenous ingredients community, native foodways. There's a great guy in Minneapolis called Sean Sherman, and his handle is the Sioux Chef, Sioux.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. So
I had the opportunity with the gentleman who runs Connect TV, Kent Speakman, who's from Calgary, to actually go to Calgary and go far north of Edmonton and meet with Chief Ojima, and who's a great grandson of Chief Pontiac, and be able to share with him and have him share with me his experiences as a they don't want to say as a Native American or a Native Canadian, but as
native peoples,
native to their land.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
Well, we should hook up on that separately. Maybe they want to do a a four hands dinner with one of their chefs and our chef, and do a big gala fundraiser. Chef Skinner is going up to Minneapolis on the 5th of November, Election Day. He's voting early. To do a four hands dinner with the Potawatomi tribe, and it's interesting to see again the commonality of ingredients, but there are differences on both sides. Some will be fish, and some will be bison, and what have you. So I think it's absolutely a fascinating thing. So thank you so much for including Geist in the Concert for Peace on Saturday. Martin's really thrilled about it. He's just putting up the link in the chat here. He's done a news update on geistmusic.com on his project website. And
we're honored to include him and the other musicians. We had a lot of videos submitted that we weren't able to use. Some just didn't fit the theme. Some were not a great production quality, but we really are thrilled with the response that we got from people and the contribution of Marty and yourselves to this project. We really are committed that the needle can move.
Yes.
As humans, I don't think most people wake up with, "Oh, today's gonna be a great day." I don't think most people wake up that way. They woke up with, "Oh, what do I got to do?
Another day.
Look at my calendar first. They look at my phone.
Right. But that's our machinery. But when you actually look and see, what are you actually committed to? What are you looking to create? What do you want to bring new to your life?
Yes.
We all have something, whether it's on the surface or buried deep down, to make a difference and to bring forth. So if we can move the needle a little bit and help cause a couple people to be a little more peaceful in their day, and maybe that can be like a piece of rock in the ocean and ripple out and make a difference, then our job is complete.
And also donate. So, if any of our...
Tell me, Barry, how can artists submit
for next year?
That's great. Thank you so much for that question. Artists can contribute for next year's concert by emailing conversationsforpeace@gmail.com.
Great.
And put video submission in the subject line, and it will be put into a catalog for next year's concert.
Great. Okay.
So I know you have a hard stop at the top of the hour, but just very quickly before we read you your custom limerick that all of our guests get. I heard a rumor once upon a time that back in your stand-up days, you also were, have you ever been involved with like children's entertainment?
Well, that's a question I don't think I've ever been asked, and the answer is yes.
Okay.
There was a time when I was trying to earn some extra money, and I was taking an improv class, and somebody came into the improv class and asked if anybody wanted to make some extra money on the weekends. And so I became a person who entertained children's birthday parties as a clown, as a Ghostbuster, and the favorite was as Michelangelo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Yep, that was me.
You did ask.
So much fun.
Would you hand your life savings to this man?
No, not immediately. No.
Oh, dear me. Well, that's fantastic. You know what? You also, on top of all of this hope, and you just said something very interesting to my branding brain, move the needle. Vinyl records, music, move the needle. Maybe that should go into your branding thing for next year.
I like that.
Using the needle to move the needle.
Like the visual of an album going around the needle.
Yeah, that's why they pay me the big bucks, mate. So that's right. Well, our regular viewers will know that we always honor our very special guests with a limerick, because Madam has a limerick book out, and so she's known as the Lady of the Limericks, and
amongst other things.
Other things. So if you are sitting comfortably, we shall begin.
Okay, 1,
2, 3. Dear Barry's all set for his show. A concert for peace, don't you know? With melodies sweet, making hearts skip a beat, spreading calm where the wild winds do blow. There we go.
We don't mean that they do blow.
No, they don't
blow.
They don't blow like they, it sucks, whatever, it blows. But the wild winds do blow. And thank you so much for, spreading the joy, the love, the peace, the music, and
we'll be watching.
Long may you prosper. And everybody, set your calendars now to 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. plus or minus Europe, and go to conversationsforpeace.com And if you have any artists who want to submit for next year, the email with the subject is video submission, conversationsforpeace@gmail.com. And thank you to Melanie Marlowe and Sandra Minetti for introducing us at their British breakfasts at the King's Head, which is how we originally met. So Barry's an honorary Brit now that he's got an Irish limerick written after him.
Yes.
Cheerio.
We'll see you all online on Saturday.
Saturday.
Ciao, ciao. See you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure.
You're welcome.